All right, enough talking about us, Isaac. We are here really just for you. That's what people want to hear about. There's a lot of exciting things, especially coming on the tail end of Gen Con here. A lot of exciting announcements from Plaid Hat. But what's something that kind of stood out to you from Gen Con? I know you're probably really heavy in the con scene, but with Gen Con, what's some experiences that kind of stood out to you?
That's interesting. Keyforge is definitely something I was paying attention to.
That's so
Yes,
interesting.
it's part of my parent company. I understand, but I mean, honestly, like it's just a very interesting concept. The fact that you can go and purchase something that is completely unique. It has a unique back. It has a unique feel. Nothing else in the world is going to be like that deck that you purchased. Is just a very interesting concept. I want to see how the market reacts to it. I want to see what that does for the possibility of design in the future. And
Oh yeah.
with the recent Corey Canincia's recent announcement of a Discovery,
Yes.
or a Discover Lands Unknown, right?
Yeah, yes, Discover.
Yeah,
I think it's Discovery too, but yeah.
yeah. So with that also being a new model, so like we have card games and we have board games that are kind of being attached to this unique system is very interesting to me, and I want to see how that's received, and I want to see how people react to it, because it's kind of opens up it's kind of how when legacy games came out, it offers a new possibility towards design, which is very intriguing to me personally because I'm a designer.
Oh, yeah. No, it's so true.
So
It's the same thing. I'm super interested to see how people pick it up, and I was super interested in Keyforge, but then once they announced Discover, I don't know what we decided on.
I think it's
Discover.
I'm gonna get in trouble.
Yeah,
now.
I'm excited about that.
We all know what we're talking. We all know if we say Discovery, we know what we're talking.
We called Keyforge Keystone in our last podcast, so you're doing just fine. That's really funny. So, of your own games at Gen Con, how do you feel the reception of Neon Gods was?
I think the reception was pretty good. I mean, you never really know until a game is for sale. So because a game is not for sale, you don't know if like, oh, was everybody just being nice to me, or is it like actually moving units? Like, is it, so like when we have games at shows, I guess I can feel like that anxiety reduced by seeing the actual product move. But just from seeing demos, like every single one of our demo tables was full. Every single one of our demoers and the people that were playing, complimented on all of our games. So, it's a tough market out there right now, but I think like the reception in Neon Gods was, exactly what I was hoping for. So I can't be disappointed, but you just never really know until units start moving and it's really out there in the wild.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the striking elements of it, I remember it was announced maybe a few weeks before Gen Con on social media, was the visual style of it. Talk to us a bit about where the decision to go in that direction came from.
So when we were talking about the original concept of doing, this kind of new like 80s style vision of the future, gangs like fighting it out in this, city that's controlled by corporations, but kind of falling apart, and all this kind of just grungy 80s futuristic kind of feeling. We wanted to find an artist that really kind of did something different from a lot of different board games that we had seen before. And we had been tossing around a lot of different people that were all very talented, all had very interesting styles. But when I came across Igor's work, Igor Wolski, that's the name of the artist who did Neon Gods. When I came across his work, I was just like, man, this guy is so different and kooky and interesting. And every time I looked at one of his pieces, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's something right there. And there's something right here going on. And there's something interesting going on here. So it's just like, this guy could do an amazing job. He could do an amazing job with just bringing out something completely different. And this world kind of needs that. It needs that touch. It needs that, just that kind of feeling. And when we told him about the project, he was enthusiastic about it. He jumped right on it. And when he came back with his first character, we were like, this is our guy. This is going to be amazing. Man.
That's awesome. Is this his first board game project?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it is his first board game
Awesome.
project. I love doing that. Like, I love finding
Yeah.
artists and it's like, hey, board games are a thing. Try them out. Like,
Seriously.
yeah.
I mean, it's happened with that. That's how Scythe came to be.
Yeah.
That's how Feudum.
Yeah.
That's how Feudum was as well. The guy Mark Swanson saw that art and brought that in as well. That's super interesting. Okay, so the industry has changed between City of Remnants and Neon Gods. Okay, so do you feel like this is getting a better reception in general? How did City of Remnants do in your eyes, and are you expecting kind of the same reception?
I mean, City of Remnants.
Better.
City of Remnants was critically acclaimed, which was
Mhm.
very nice for my first game. I'm glad that people
Yeah.
like reviewers received it well, but it just didn't resonate with a lot of players. It didn't sell particularly super well or anything like that. At least not to the expectations that Plaid Hat has started forming as a company. Our expectations keep outdoing each other. So
Yeah.
by the time other games come around, if they don't hit what the last game did, it's just like, it could have been a success at another company or when we were smaller, but not necessarily at the level we're at now. So like I am hopeful that Neon Gods will be able to be received better. The entire point of starting to work on that project was a reimagining of the City of Remnants design and allowing for just kind of streamlining, trying to bring it up to where we are as a industry right now, allowing people to still have a lot of the same things that they loved and the mechanics that they loved in City of Remnants, but also giving it to them in a much more easy to handle way, in a way that they're going to be able to be more focused, but still have the feeling of, drafting different characters into their decks, making their decks very unique and feel different from other players, and also allowing them to take over different locations and kind of feel like a gang that's expanding and controlling its territory.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I think that we accomplished that. It's definitely you're definitely not paying attention to so many things that were going on. It's kind of more focused. For sure. And it also we were also able to approach, like you were mentioning with the art, we were able to approach the game in a much more beautiful way. Because with the first game, not to say anything negative about the artist, but we just we had certain budgets, we had certain constraints back then, and we had a certain, we were still figuring out our style and what the kind of thing that we wanted to represent.
Well, I mean, back then it fit with all the other games though in Plaid Hat's offerings, because is it the same artist that did a Dungeon Run as well?
A Dungeon Run and
super
Secret Wars as well.
Yeah,
he even did some stuff for us on BioShock, and he's done some amazing stuff. I mean, he won awards for Mice and Mystics as well.
Yeah, sure, Mice and Mystics.
Yeah, because City of Remnants, that holds a special place in my heart. I played it when I was like early on in the hobby. And I was just I was in a small duplex. It was just my wife and I before we had kids, and I had some friends over, and it was just like those games that just brought these different mechanisms together in such a beautiful way that everyone I was playing with back then absolutely loved it. I had some friends who went and bought it. I tried to spread the love. I tried.
Yeah, and I still have people coming up to me and telling me how much they love that game. Some people telling me that it's their favorite game. So like that's what I do appreciate about everything that I have worked on. It's been able to resonate with someone, whether or not it's sold super well or it didn't. It has always been able to capture its audience, intrigue them, and that message always gets back to me and makes me have all the warm fuzzies and feel good about it. So it's very nice to know that the things that I work on are resonating with people. And that's awesome. I think that Neon Gods will find its audience. I think it will hopefully please a lot of people that did play City of Remnants and enjoyed it, and also expand the amount of people that didn't necessarily give it a try, either because it was too complex or it wasn't the style that they liked or things like that, and give it another try and see if it's something that they are enjoying. Because it's definitely something that's made specifically for this type of time period that we're in, a little bit different.
It makes sense. It made the hotness, right, from Gen Con. So, I mean, it'll definitely get some awareness from there. That's awesome. I'm excited to play it, just to kind of see the evolution.
I do have a question about Neon Gods. I know that I think there's one video out there that someone interviewed Colby about the game. It's like a 3-minute video out there on YouTube.
Yeah.
So going back, I actually have recently played City of Remnants out of
I saw your tweets. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, it's really strange too because like I messaged you because I was out board game hunting and I found this game, City of Remnants, and I looked and saw that your name was on it. And I had no idea that you'd made this game. It was your first game. So I picked it up, and sure enough, then Neon Gods literally the next day had been announced.
Yeah.
So
I found that so funny.
Yeah. So in the games, like, you have so many mechanisms, right? And what's interesting is that when I played it with people, you know, you have your hand management, you have your city building, you have your resource management, you have your area control, you have your auctioning. Like, there is a lot of mechanics that single games just focus on one. You have like, you throw a lot at the player, but what I found really interesting is that players didn't feel like one overdid the other. Like, everything kind of fit into its nice place, which I think is why I think reviewers and why people come out of it liking it. Like, there is a lot to it, but that I think it speaks towards the balance of what you're able to do, which is make every single mechanic, I think, feel in its own, like, didn't ever go past what it was supposed to do. So, like, was that something that you had strived in development to say, this is what I want to have happen? Or was it just like, you really like these things that you had seen in board games and really wanted to try to incorporate as much as possible, and things kind of evolved from there to the point where it is what it is today?
City of Remnants was certainly kind of my love letter to what I loved about board games. Yeah. You know, it was definitely like, oh, I love this auctioning mechanic, and I love this ability to do deck building, and I love being able to draft these different characters and take area control and things like that. And I just, when I thought about all of those mechanics kind of melding into one, it just came into this like, oh, it'd be really cool if we were like, we all had our own little gang and we were trying to build up this kind of area and we were trying to take these things over. And it just, each mechanic, like you said, lended to the experience and just made sense in the theme. And I think that that's how I approach all of my designs. If the mechanic is a really good mechanic, but it doesn't make sense in the theme, I avoid it completely. But if it is able to meld, if it is able to work together, I want it in there. I want it to be able to represent, you know, what I'm trying to accomplish with the theme and what the characters and the story is trying to tell, because I don't necessarily, through my games, always get to explore a narrative aspect or like essentially take you through a specific campaign, but I try through the things that you are actually doing, showing you that these characters have a life to them. So yeah, it was something that I definitely did on purpose, but it also just kind of came out of the world that I was trying to build.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, so did you feel that Neon Gods in the process of developing it pushed you in any sort of way? Like, helped you grow as a developer?
Yeah, I think it showed me that, like, I can do a lot more with less. And that's something that I've actually been learning with Starship Samurai. I felt the same way. It's kind of my new process, seeing all these games that are out there nowadays that, you know, take very simple mechanics but provide just a plethora of opportunities with them, is something that I'm still trying to put into my designs, because I notice how much people just gravitate towards those designs, and they also are able to teach them easily to their friends and spread the love of the game. And ultimately, you know, that's the entire point of gaming, is this social aspect, to be able to get other people together, get engaged with them. And the more that we have less walls and barriers in between getting you from understanding nothing about the game to understanding as much as you possibly can about the game, is, you know, the goal. Like, rules are always going to be the biggest hurdle in gaming. And we have to I'm personally on a journey to strive to eliminate as much as possible from that process of not knowing to knowing, you know?
Yeah.
So Neon Gods is definitely easier to learn than City of Remnants was, you know, and Starship Samurai is probably one of the easiest games I've ever developed to learn as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to keep doing that so people can get to the fun, you know?
Yeah. So this is exactly why I loved Starship Samurai, because that exactly what you're talking about, and I find the trends in my hobby going towards that, where it's easy to just put it on the table and teach and play and to get into, and the main takeaway I got from Starship Samurai was it was like the elements of games like Rising Sun, but just like the fun elements pared down to Starship Samurai, and that made me so excited, and I loved that aspect of it because don't get me wrong, I love Rising Sun, but there you're playing a 3-hour game, and kind of the most exciting parts about that was the battling and kind of gearing up towards that. Where with Starship Samurai, it's just that, but pared down, and you're focusing more on the fun elements of it. So that's awesome to hear that that's kind of been a goal of yours, and I think that's a goal with a lot of people I'm seeing now, just with games in general. Of course, we still get the super heavy games, which are great for what they are.
I think there's always going to be room for both types of games, but my new kind of mantra and what I want to do is engage as many new people as possible into our industry, because we are growing, but we are also like in a way kind of shoving a lot into the whales of our industry. Like people, it's like, hey, you love games, buy more, buy more, buy more, buy more. And I think that we need to do a better job of, hey, like there's still millions upon millions of people that don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
I run into people every day that I tell them what I do, and they have no idea. The only way that I can connect the dots is to tell them about Monopoly, and that is something that I think our industry can definitely strive to do, and I think a lot of people are. It's not like we aren't. But yeah, it's a really fun hobby, and I want to expand it as much as possible. And if I can make a game that is able to do that, even in a small way, I want to be able to. That's why when you told me your story about your friends coming over for Starship Samurai, and he had not come over anymore, or he had not come over before that much, that's exactly what I was hoping for. And that's, I want to engage people that may have not thought this, like, I've never really tried games, or like I sat down, it was too complicated. I want them to sit down and feel like, oh, I get this. I understand what's going on. I understand how everything's connecting. And that's what I'm hoping for, as many people as possible. And also just like to also involve people of different backgrounds. There's a lot of women that don't necessarily get to play games as much. There's a lot of people of color that don't get access to games, and bringing down price points, bringing down the barriers to entry, anything that we can do to do that is important to me.
Oh, totally. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's say that you have a new game coming out and you put your heart and soul into it, a game like Starship Samurai, and criticism starts coming in, okay? And that's going to happen with any game, right? People are going to be passionate about their opinions. What's your process of kind of taking that criticism, weeding out what you think is valid or whatnot? What do you do personally to kind of cope with all that?
What I learned from my very first game, City of Remnants, is that no matter what you do, people are going to have an opinion that may not jive exactly the way that you were hoping.
Yeah.
I sometimes go down that rabbit hole of like looking at comments, seeing responses, looking at every review that comes out, or seeing reviews that weren't necessarily positive. Sometimes I don't have the time, like honestly, to do that. But most of the times when I do have the time, I do. And I'm not trying to like beat myself up over anything. I'm trying to just learn from the experience. There's going to be comments out there that are constructive, that are valid. One of the things that people have said about Starship Samurai is not having the basis to color code the thing. And yep, that's something we had thought about. We decided to go against because of we didn't want to price the game at a certain point, but it looks
Yeah.
like it would have been better to price the game higher and not had that comment come out. So that's something we definitely learned from that, and it's hopefully a solution that we can come up with for the future. But like, there's something you're going to learn from every game that's released. You know, and
totally.
and what I always tell people in the process of playtesting and just, you know, anytime before a game is released, I always tell people, be 100% honest with me. Tell me what you would post online about this, because I can change it now. I can't do anything once it's out there. It's not a video game. I can't release a code update.
Yeah.
I can't do any of that. It's gonna be done. It's the product. It's finished.
Yeah,
So
that's so true.
So you know, I learn an incredible amount from that process, but some of it is not constructive. Some of it is just an opinion. Some of it is just, you know, it's just not their cup of tea, and that's okay. Not every game is going to fit every player. That is never going to be the case. It doesn't matter what game you have. There's going to be someone that does not enjoy it. But
that's a hard lesson to learn, though.
No,
it really
I mean,
is.
well, the thing is that like, it's either you put it out there and someone will enjoy it, you know, or you don't put it out there and then no one will ever experience it at all. My entire thing is that even on the bad reviews, even on the bad comments, I am always thankful for them, because at least they took the time to try it out. At least they were interested enough to give it their time. And in the age that we live in, there is so much stuff that is competing for a human being's time.
Oh yeah.
So to allow that into your life means I made a change in that person's life in a small way. I hope that it's always positive. Sometimes, you know, it may just not be their cup of tea, and that's okay.
So we solved the whole base thing in Starship Samurai issue. You take Sagrada dice because they're tiny and the same colors. You saw that? Yeah.
I saw that online.
Worked. Yeah. So, and you know, it makes sense. I think that's some good advice. Is feedback is good as long as you can take it and understand what is actually constructive and what's not. I love that. That's great.
I'm gonna jump back to Neon Gods, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So is the city building mechanic still present? Like, you have all the different types of buildings and their size, and you flip them over, and you have each building producing, or because I didn't see much of that. As far as how that works.
You are building structures, but there's a limited amount of structures that kind of fall into every aspect of what you could do in the old game. It says now you can combine them. So I can build a factory on the same space that I build a watchtower, on the same space that I build a monument. You know, so that allows me now, in that same space, I have defense, I have production, and I have additional victory points.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and combo those things in specific ways, but you know, now there's small tokens. They're not these big hulking things that you're flipping over and you're doing and having to read on the board, which makes the board completely understandable without anything outside of numbers as far as text.
Gotcha.
You know, so it's just like, now I can look across and I don't have to read what my opponent's structure does or know what it is before I even invade it or do anything. I can look across and see, oh, he has this, and this. I know exactly what's going on there.
Yeah.
And that was something that we really wanted to enforce, because in the original City of Remnants, people were confused by what the buildings did. People were also having trouble reading the actual text because you'd be putting units on there. Yes, we had the cards out, but then the cards are over there. They're facing the wrong direction. And, you know, just being able to decipher what is going on at a glance is very valuable. And it saves a lot of time, especially in these games that kind of are meatier. They take a little bit more time to play.
Gotcha. Are the miniatures about the same size as the one in City of Remnants?
No, they're a little bigger. I want to
They're a
make
little
sure. Yeah, I want to make sure of that.
Well,
they're
so it's
chunkier.
interesting.
They're nicer.
Yeah, so the miniatures in City of Remnants 2012 are tinier than I would have thought. Not that that was a bad thing, because they actually still look pretty cool. They all are very much like you can tell what they are.
Chad, our sculptor, did an amazing job making such tiny miniatures.
Yeah,
discernible. Like, he is a very talented human being. But yeah, like, I definitely wanted them to be bigger. I wanted them to be, you know, if we're gonna have these cool color schemes with the neon and the city and all this kind of stuff, I wanted them to stand out and be a focal point. And the way they turned out, I was super happy with.
Can you talk anything about combat?
Yeah, so combat is kind of like we reversed the way the units and the cards ended up working. So in the original City of Remnants, dice were attached to every unit that you have on the board. So you got one die for every unit that you have on the board, and then your cards would give you numbers to play those. So now we reversed it. Cards actually give you the dice to play with, and the units just out there that give you the numbers. So that way, every time you're invading, you have an understanding of like, okay, I know what he has on the board, but I don't know what's on those cards. You know, so I don't know what dice is going to be bringing out. And I don't know by playing, it's like, am I going to be able to do this? I know that I'm going to play this die. It's more powerful, but it may not happen. Like, it may not happen for me, which still having the combination of numbers and random numbers with the dice is always kind of a fun aspect, because it allows you to have that random chance, even if you are the underdog, to win that game. And that's always a point in which there's definitely a huge reaction at the table. There's emotion. There's people paying attention to that. And it's definitely a concept that we still wanted to keep in. We just wanted it a little bit more measured. And it also allowed people to select their characters into their decks a lot easier without having, oh man, there's that 5 character. Everybody's going to go after him. And then no one's going to pay attention to that too. Now I'm paying attention more to the ability and less to their combat value. Even though their combat value is still something that's important to me, it's not necessarily guaranteed that they're going to give me something that's super high, you know?
Yeah, gotcha. And is it still like is the auctioning system because it sounds like instead you had like 1 of 6 actions that you could choose from. Now is it more like I saw it was definitely much more like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. When you recruit a gang member, do you still have that auctioning process as well too?
You don't have the auctioning process, and this is one of the things that I did try to keep throughout the process of demoing. The issue is that there would be so many moments in City of Remnants in which the auctioning process would slow down the game. It would beat up on players that just didn't have money at certain moments. And what ended up being a better solution and still kind of worked very similarly is just having I forget what the actual terminology is, but just having a buying system in which, you know, hey, this guy's worth 0 right now. This guy's worth 1. This guy's worth 3. This one's worth 5, and then it all tiers down as people buy. You know, so that ended up making things faster, and I think that for the experience that we were trying to go for, making things quicker, moving forward with your turns, because in City of Remnants, you know that you can take a turn and it can last 5-7 minutes because you have so many combos of things that are going on. And what I was trying to make sure is that the turns are lasting more like 2 minutes, you know, at most, you know, moving forward, moving quickly.
So that's what we noticed as well too, is that there are some decks where it's just like draw a card, get money, draw a card, get money, draw a card, get money. And there was like, you know, 3 of them you could hit, and I think your influence size was like 4 or something like that. So there's very much times where you know, with how small your deck was, you were almost literally cycling through that deck, you know, for your turn, which is fun for that player. But as you mentioned as well too, those player times do get long. So yet when I saw that whole streamlining system, as you know, you had made mention to, it definitely much more seemed like the 2.0 version of that game, which is really awesome to hear. I'm really excited. As you know, definitely the art drew me in, and now having played City of Remnants, and playing it with other people and telling them about what this next game and offering could be, all of them as well were excited. Very much everyone was still very interested in playing City of Remnants. And so I would definitely say that Neon Gods in my possession would probably override it. But
I think at the point at where Neon Gods is, I think they will be able to still be very interesting separate games.
Sure.
You know, it's kind of going to be, it's not going to be quite a My Little Scythe to Scythe ratio for sure. It's definitely, Neon Gods is still definitely a meaty game. It still will take you about 90 to 120 minutes. You know, it's going to be a bigger night, but bigger part of your night. But, you know, it won't have all of these, like, City Remnants had the interesting aspect of having so many different mechanics all working around at once. Neon Gods is far more focused, and I think it's just going to be on the preference of what the players are feeling for in that moment or what they're looking for out of their game.
Sure.
Which means that next year is My Little Neon Gods, right?
We'll see.
We'll see. My Little City of Remnants. So I kind of want to open it up a little bit more away from City of Remnants and kind of going out into the hobby in itself a bit more. So I want to talk about, like, when you first came on board, have City of Remnants under your belt, to today with the pending release of Neon Gods and Starship Samurai. How do you feel the hobby board game landscape has changed from when you first came on board to today? Like, what are some of the primary, like, things you're like, now reflecting back, being like, wow, like, this is something that has been prominently, I don't know, made, like, pushed to the frontier? Or, like, is it the growth? Is it the mechanics? I mean, of course, probably I think the barrier of entry has been gradually been getting easier and easier and easier. Has there been anything else that's come to mind?
I think you touched on most everything. The thing that comes to mind the most is seeing the amount of diversity that is entering the industry right now. Totally. Not only on the aspect of the actual consumer, but also in the people that are developing product and the people that are talking about it. Content creators are the things that I'm most excited about seeing, actually. So it's you guys are part of this. Mm-hmm. The amount of people that are talking about the industry has exploded, and I am very, very, very happy about that, because you guys are the ones that are doing the work to excite people and evangelize this industry outside of where we're at, because there's so many people that came up to us when we had the podcast going on that found out about board games or started getting into board games by listening to us, by listening to us talk about the industry, by listening to us talk about our process and things like that. And I know that there are listeners of yours, there are listeners of many of the people that are starting their own podcasts or starting their own YouTube channels and things like that have never touched this industry before, have never been interested in it before, but now are starting to find out about it through these people. And because we're getting such a large amount of young, energetic, diverse, energy involved, we're just going to be attracting that as far as clients and people that haven't tried it out before. And what I also like seeing is that, just like we were talking about, there is this kind of push for, games that are kind of somewhere in between what we considered entry level and somewhere in between we received as like hard Euros or hard hobby games, that are really resonating with people and allowing people just like, hey, try this out. You're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy it, and it's amazing. We're in an amazing time. It's so interesting to see the amount of stuff that is being pushed out there, the things that people are doing. The art in board games has definitely upped its quality.
Oh yeah,
in the last 5 years, for sure. Like, there were so many games with just a farmer and his pitchfork, yeah, just standing in front of that box under a setting sun, waiting for everybody to die.
Yeah, you that's just rings so true.
Oh, yeah.
But
Wow.
now there's just so much life. There's so much interesting worlds that are being explored. There's so many interesting stories that are being explored. Stories stories are also something big that it's exploded since the beginning of when I've come into the industry until now. Like, people are exploring so many different ways to tell stories, to see board games as a different form of art, to be able to explore not only things that make people happy, but things that can make people think.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time. It's also a hard time because it's like, oh well, everybody's upping their game, so
Oh,
we
yeah, you
gotta
have to
we
fight
gotta
for that
up our game. We
attention.
gotta think about more things, and as a personal process, the more that you kind of like get into your own head and focus and you're just sitting there and designing, the less that you're paying attention in the industry, the less that you're playing. So I am learning to also remind myself, like, hey, I need to get out there. I need to get out there and be with the people and play and enjoy what is going on in the industry too. And like, Origins was a great opportunity for me to do that when I met you, Ryan. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an exciting time.
It is.
I'm very, everything's been enhanced. Everything.
Which is overwhelming at times too.
Oh yeah.
I think, like, completely overwhelming. Okay, so where do you see it going in the next 5 years? Both the industry as a whole and maybe you as a designer. What's in store for you?
Oh man. That is an interesting question. I am just not even just in design, not just in my own career, but in my own life as a life lesson. I'm trying to learn to live in the now. It's a very difficult thing for me because I'm always a person that's kind of in the past or in the future. I'm not right here.
Yeah.
I'm not right here.
Yeah.
So I probably would have had something to tell you a few months ago, like, oh, this is where I'm thinking and blah, blah, blah. But right now I'm trying to just focus on what I can do right now. And, 5 years from now, what I hope is that I'm still enjoying this to the best of my ability. I'm still exploring new things that excite me and that scare me and that allow me to share more of myself with the people that are paying attention,
Yeah.
And I think that if I continue on that path, that it will lead to some very amazing and wonderful things. What that exactly looks like, I'm not so sure yet, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to be here a little bit more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, okay. Yeah, I'm done.
I was gonna say, actually, what you said something was very interesting about things kind of scaring you in a good way. As you started design for a game, what's kind of the most scary aspect of it to you?
One is like, has anybody else done this before? That's harder and harder to figure out.
Oh yeah.
In the way that things are going right now, like, because there's so many games out there that, like, hey, I just told you guys about Word Slam, didn't know it was a thing, and it was released apparently in 2016. So it's just like, things like that. You don't want to waste your time on something that's already been done before, already received. Luckily, there are, as many ideas that are out there. There are so many more ideas that haven't been done. So that's a good thing. What scares me too is that, like, I want to make sure that I'm giving the time and the love that a game deserves, and really putting it through its training courses before it's out there. I think that everything with the way that competition is out there nowadays, you really have to do your diligence and your homework.
Oh yeah.
And also make sure that you're putting it in front of the right people that are going to help you guide the game to the right path. And as far as like things that are scary, I think there's always moments where I'm not the best writer. I'm not the best necessarily getting all of my thoughts out onto paper as far when it comes to storytelling. those are things that
Mhm.
I'm trying to explore right now. I'm working on a game right now that allows me to do that a little bit more.
Cool.
And I want to be able to explore that more. So that is scary for me, because I do have dyslexia. That is difficult for me,
Oh yeah.
to always put that out there in the most clear way. And editing is probably the thing that's the worst. That is the thing that scares you the worst, because you
It
always
pushes you the
know,
most.
like, oh man, it's something I'm not good at, and I know that it, like, you always, oh man, I'm gonna miss something. There's something
Yep.
that's gonna, like, be missed. And like I said, once a game is out there, it's out there. You can't
Yeah.
change it. You can't stop a 10,000 print run from
Ugh.
from hitting the shelf and
Aberrito.
saying, like,
Terrifying.
no, like,
Yeah.
this is wrong. So, and
With an
Aberrito.
expansion.
and those mistakes have happened
Yeah.
before. Those mistakes have happened before, but
Yeah.
trying to make sure those things don't happen again. So there's a lot of scary aspects. But
Okay.
we with experience, and the team that we've been able to have here at Plaid Hat Games, we push through them, and we cheer each other on, and we try to work on them and do our best.
That's awesome. It sounds like that fear is being channeled in a good way then.
Yeah.
Or like helping you develop to your best potential, which is great. Okay, so in that same vein, kind of, how are you separating yourself from other designers? What are you trying to do to kind of make yourself different from other designers?
I think I honestly don't put that much thought into that.
Mhm.
Only because I don't see myself as so special or unique.
But you are in my heart.
Oh, thank you. One of the things that I think that I bring to the table that a lot of other people can't, or at least a lot of other people didn't, when I was first coming into the industry, was the fact that I'm a gay person of color. That is something, bringing diversity, bringing different stories that a lot of people don't necessarily see in the
Yeah.
industry, to the forefront. Dead of Winter was definitely my first foray into that, and making sure that there's characters can have these types of stories too. They can have this type of interaction too. These people can live in the same town together. It's not crazy.
They can fight zombies together.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And it's one of those things that you really can't truly understand what it is unless the people behind those stories are actually telling them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I struggle with right now, because there's a lot of voices out there that want to champion diversity and be out there, but at the same time too, we have to push up the people that are actually diverse, having these conversations, and pushing their voices out there, and putting more representation. I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky few in the industry that has the career that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Being a gay person of color, like, I personally don't know that many other people that are, and I'm just starting to meet some other people in the industry that way as well, and that's a relatively new thing, and that's amazing, and I'm glad that's happening. But I want to see more of that, and I hope that I can do my best to be representative of that. But it's also like, not everything I am. It's not everything that I'm going to be able to tell, and it's not the only thing I want to focus on. I want to make my games fun first and foremost.
Now, is it easier to kind of tell that story these days? Is it easier? Is it harder?
I think it's definitely easier. It's getting easier for sure, but it's also, in the time period that we're in, it definitely has a lot more, not necessarily scrutiny, but a lot more expectations on it. And unfortunately, not every game can be everything for everybody. That's just not the reality that we live in. No form of entertainment can fulfill everybody's story, because we have so many stories in this world. And not every game can teach every lesson, or allow for, certain bridges to be crossed or things like that. So it's just, it's just a difficult thing. Like anytime you put something out there, someone else is going to feel excluded,
Yeah.
and I think that we also have to do a good job of not only, saying that we need to champion these voices, but we have to understand too that like we can also, help other people that we can't necessarily tell those stories for, bring up other people that can tell those stories, not
Mhm.
Yeah.
so it's just like, okay, I didn't do this in my thing because that's not my experience, but let me go ahead and tell you who did and who can, and educating ourselves and bringing each other together in that way too.
It's
No, it's
awesome.
beautiful. So, is there um, advice you could give for not necessarily board game designers, but actually the consumers, us who just play the games? Any advice you have on your end for ways that we can do that, that we can help promote that idea?
I think the best thing that consumers can do is to champion games from that tell a diverse story, or that just have a different spin to it, or have a diverse set of characters. You guys have so much power with your dollars
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
this world. You have so much power to say, you know what, this game, it would have. And you can also reach out to publishers and say, this game had all the things that I wanted except a diverse set of characters or a good female representation or these kinds of
Yeah.
things. And I would have purchased this game if it wasn't for that reason. Because letting a publisher know in a civil and like easy way, I'm
Of
always
course.
a champion for, hey, you don't have to put everything up on social media. You can just send an email. Sometimes that's really the best way to really change minds and hearts, because in social media everybody gets so reactive.
Yeah.
Um, Even though like sometimes people do need to be called out, and sometimes the only way to do that is publicly. But you know supporting projects that have that kind of representation is a very good way. The other way is just teach games to as many people as you feel comfortable teaching games to. Like one of the biggest things that I have noticed in people when I started in the industry, and in myself even, is that like one of the things that people say a lot is like, she won't like this game because she's a girl.
Oh,
You know?
really? No,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. This happens all the time. And that is a wall that you are building for another person without even or talking to them about it. you
Yeah.
know a lot of people do that. And it's like, don't build these walls around these things that are supposed to be community driven, they're fun, bring people together. Don't build these walls that are just going to separate you from enjoying something with someone else just because you have a preconceived notion of who that person is.
Totally.
And that is something that I will definitely say, as a consumer, you guys have the power to spread the love. Spread the love.
I love it.
you know
Spread the love, guys.
yeah.
I love it.
I also want to make mention too, in that same like kind of diversity thing, and I've been present to this a lot on Twitter, that there has been, specifically within content creators that are females, have been getting a lot of negative feedback from people, specifically men, that have been it's been very hurtful, damaging, disrespectful, um, to those specific people. They are, they're women that are championing this content and trying to, again, spread that love. And to have these people spread, kind of like spreading the hate, as far as like, what these, what just these content creators are trying to do, has been, I think a lot has been on my feed a lot recently, and has brought a lot of attention to my side, as far as being conscious about, as what's going on. It's something that in Hollywood we had all these big mogul people being called out on for, sexual harassment and obviously treating women very badly, and now we are starting to see that in our hobby, and I think it's disgraceful. I think it's awful, and I really hope that we still continue to side with women that are being treated this way, and let these people know that it's not tolerated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing that us as men can do is to support women that are telling these stories, believe them, and also defend them when they're having these issues. These are not our stories to tell, but we need to be able to allow the space for them to be told and to push for equality in any way that we possibly can. And it's so, and this is the thing, this is the hardest thing about this, is that it's not just a problem with our industry, it's a problem with
everywhere.
Our culture. It's a world,
everywhere.
you know, it's
exactly.
like, and that's what's very difficult, but at least my hope is that by having more communication about it, by having people realize that it is a problem, that it is something that needs to be fixed, that we can go ahead and get to a better place. It's going to take time, and it's not going to be easy, but it can be better, and it should.
I feel like, on a positive note, though, that it is. People are more aware of it now more than ever, and I think that's what promotes that change, and I think that's a positive aspect of it. But I mean, we do get those faceless cowards on social media that can hide behind that shield, and they'll do whatever they do, right? And that's but as we become more aware of that, we can, like you said, become defenders and things like that. I think that's beautiful. Well, this I don't know. I actually had other questions about games, but I think this is a beautiful note to kind of end this discussion on. Do you have any other questions on your end, Ryan?
No. I mean, really, no. I do really think that was a great kind of way to end this episode. I mean, we talked a lot about Neon Gods, which I'm again really excited for. We talked a lot about, again, teaching games, spreading love, championing good content, and I can't think of a better way really to move forward from that. Really, I don't know. That seemed very conclusive. I don't know. I'm very.
No, it's true.
Really
it's
great.
true.
I feel really good.
This has been just a pleasure, Isaac. You are just a charming individual, and it's been great being able to talk to you and get in your mind with the process on your end and everything like that. It's just a big thank you from our end.
Oh no, thank you guys for having me on. I'll do this anytime you guys want me. Just let me know.
Okay, same time next week. Just kidding.
Rolling triples.
Rolling triples. No, it's funny. A couple of weeks ago, as we started talking about this, I realized that I own like 80% of the games that you made. I think I don't own Video Game High School.
That's fine. There was only a small amount of those printed.
Okay. And then Dead of Winter, Flick 'em Up. I have Flick 'em Up and I have Dead of Winter, but I don't have the marriage of the two. Which honestly, what that is, that just represents like the marriage of your parent company when all that kind of went down. It's like this is the love child of when all of that came out.
Yes.
And it's just like the quintessential example of that. So any other words of wisdom that you want to share, Isaac, on your end?
Oh man, just love each other, people. Like, come on.
Love each other, people. Come on.
Just play
That's
play more board games and love each other, because we need it. Like, the world needs it right now. Just
so true.
Enjoy each other and spend more time away from your phone, and hopefully playing a board game that makes you laugh and have a good time.
I love it. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Isaac's Ashes, and you can also just email me at isaac@plaidhatgames.com.
Cool. Okay, actually, about that, did you make that handle when Ashes came out?
Yes, I might change it in the future.
Ooh.
Who knows? It might be time.
I mean, Ashes is a great game.
Thank you.
It's not a bad handle.
I mean, it's still coming out, so
yeah, it's still out.
relevant.
Seriously, do you have influence on all the decks that are coming out? Is that all you, or is it kind of
actually
been handed
no?
off to
Like,
developers?
I've allowed for new designers to come in. We've had one of my lead play testers on that, Robert Klotz, was the one who designed, I believe, both of the most recent decks. And then we also have our lead playtester, Nick, who's also been doing some deck design too. And they are just amazing people, and they've know more about the game than I do at this point. So, oh my gosh, they just have the brains for it. It's funny. I design so much from emotional and like a just throwing my heart on paper and trying to see if all these crazy things work out. And sometimes I need people in my life that just have that very analytical, the numbers based kind of mind. And when we meld, I love those people so much because they help me see things in a very different way. But I also push them to make sure, no, the love still has to be there, and the passion and the emotion and the drama and all that stuff. So I always think, and we with Ashes specifically, like having them on my team has been amazing because they are just a good meld of all of that, and
that's cool.
Really help out with that.
Anyway, that's Isaac Ashes on Twitter. I was at the Gamer Curator, but I'm kind of retiring that end of my content production, focusing more on this podcast. I used to make videos anyway. Actually made a video about Starship Samurai for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm gonna be primarily on at Roll Doubles for this podcast, so I'm gonna start pumping things out for that. And Ryan, where do people find you?
They find me at Twitter at Ryguy314, RyGuyPie, which actually is a better Twitter handle. I just used it in high school. I didn't think about it. I wasn't that clever in high school, so I was like,
you weren't developing your brand from high school.
No, I was not. No,
it was like Bistro, the designer of Dungeon Run, was telling me the funniest thing when he was trying to get his daughter into preschool. Like, it's like, what is her brand gonna be? And I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, already? Like, geez.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Oh, that's so funny.
Well, okay, so I played a lot of Counter-Strike, and you had to have a really cool nickname when you played Counter-Strike. Yeah. So, actually, college is where people started calling me Rye Guy, and then I just added the 314 on it just because for some reason, people kind of had like their birth date after it, and I'm like, why do you put your birth date? I thought it was like a whole privacy thing, so I was like, what's my favorite number? And I was like, well, I like pi because it's kind of a neat number, so it's like Rye Guy 314, and then it turned out to be Rye Guy Pi, which just kind of flew nicely, but I just now do the Rye Guy 314. In high school though, my nickname was Devs, DEVS, which was the initials for Die von Satan, which was a Tool song from Anima.
Oh yeah, it's a great album.
So everyone used to call me Devs, and then it turned into Devsinator after the Terminator, and so now Devsinator was kind of floating around there. But I have retired that as far as like, I just use Rye Guy. It just makes so much more sense. So there was kind of a brand that I had built, is what I'm trying to say. However, as I growed and aged, I just ended up just being like, hey, it's just my name, Rye Guy Pie.
Okay, I've got some quick shot questions for you for people as a reward for listening this long. Britney Spears or Madonna?
Oh, this is for me.
Yes, Isaac. Sorry, this is for you, Isaac. I don't care what Ryan thinks.
Britney Spears. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's
Madonna.
Right.
I would say Madonna.
NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
NSYNC.
I'm sorry, it's gonna be Backstreet Boys.
Oh,
I had a crush on one of them.
I don't doubt that.
I was definitely NSYNC. I'm just answering these questions, by the way. I don't care.
No, that's true. I was also NSYNC. Let's see. When did you graduate high school, Isaac?
2005.
Okay, so I was 02, and that's when Celebrity came out, which was just an amazing album. So I'm definitely an NSYNC guy, but I get the Backstreet Boys. I get it. Let's see. Star Wars or Star Trek?
This is hard.
I know
Oh my gosh. Star Trek. I'm sorry. Picard just has taught me so much about life.
Yeah.
He's coming back. He's coming back.
Yeah, I heard. I still haven't seen the new series yet. I'm so bad. But I need to just buy it. I don't think it's on any of the streaming services. That's why I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So
awesome.
hang on.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Star Trek, and I'm very specifically, there's one Star Trek episode or series that holds my heart, which is very controversial. Star Trek Voyager.
Really?
I love Star Trek Voyager. I mean, TNG comes a very close second, but Star Trek Voyager was like what I grew up with.
Yes,
like can't even remember what's her name. Oh no, Okay, I can't. It can't be. It can't
Some
be.
fan.
It's no, yeah, I know, right?
He's a fan like me who barely remembers information.
I know.
I love it so much. What were their names? I have no idea.
Well, the doctor was really cool. Neelix. I'm just the redhead. The captain. What's her name? Oh no. Anyways, move on.
Wait,
please.
was she? She's in Orange is the New Black, right?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't.
Yeah,
remember
you know
her
what I'm
name.
talking. Right. As soon as I watch it, I'll kind of kick myself. Please move on. Last question.
I'm a Star Wars guy. That's just, I was a big TNG fan growing up, but Star Wars just will always hold a special place in my heart.
I mean, they're both great. Like, I mean,
I
it's
know,
just like
that's true.
we don't have to make them war against each other. We can just love them both.
Okay, fine. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has just been wonderful. There's tons of other questions we could talk about, but I think we did great. So I appreciate the time so much.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks so much for listening. Music intro is Sivu Play by Fantastic Plastic Machine, and music bumpers were created by myself using Apple Loops and GarageBand for iOS. Join us next time as we continue to wipe up our drool on another exciting episode of Rolling Doubles Podcast.